What's up, guys? Welcome back to yet another episode of Form Check Friday, the show where we take your videos, we put them on this TV, and then I talk about what you can do better to lift better, be more efficient, and ideally stay further from injury. So we're gonna get right into it here with our first video being last week's last video. Kirk. Now Kirk is doing some bench press here because this video is actually being filmed the same day as the last one. I'm not able to look at anybody's comments in regards to Kirk, but you guys are usually awesome with that, so kudos to you. Thanks for all your help. The biggest things I see with Kirk are, first off, there's a lot of really good things. I can visibly see that Kirk is reaching his chest up to the bar as he makes the touch. That's fantastic. I believe that does a lot for an athlete's positioning and consistency. I can also see that the bar path is really good. That bar is coming back off his chest and then straight up, which again does a lot for efficiency. The one issue that I think that Kirk could do a little bit better with is as he finishes the reps, it looks like he has a tendency to actually reach his scapula or his shoulder blades forward a little bit, sacrificing a little bit of position between each repetition. So what I would advise you to do, Kirk, is as you lock out, think about just finishing with your triceps. Think about just locking the elbows, keeping those shoulders pulled back into position, and not letting things creep forward as you lock out each rep. Our next video is some sumo deadlifts from Isfar. Now, honestly, it took me a lot to kind of pick out anything that was wrong with these. The one thing that I think maybe can use a little bit of work is you can just barely see we're getting a little bit of flexion in that lumbar, that low back. I think if we can get just a tiny bit more extension in that low back, it's gonna allow you to maintain a more upright position. In the, I believe one of the last few reps of this set, maybe the very last one, it looked like you got just a little bit more upright than the rest of the set. And I think part of that was due to kind of pulling yourself in a little bit better, and part of it was due to getting just a little tiny bit more extension in that low back and that lumbar, just to make sure that we can be a little tiny bit more upright, a little bit more efficient, etc., etc. But honestly, overall, Isfar, fantastic sumo deadlifts. Basically, just keep doing what you're doing. If you can get a little bit more extension and it feels okay, go for it. If it feels funky, whatever, then just keep doing what you're doing. It looks really good. Our next video here comes from Yusuf. Now, Yusuf actually had a bad fall. He said he had a grade 2 meniscus tear. So what he's doing now is he's doing some deadlifts because he's gonna have to postpone learning to squat again. He says he doesn't get any pain or anything in his conventional deadlift, so that's what he wants us to take a look at here. Now, honestly, overall, I would say that your deadlifts look quite good. I don't see much of an issue with them, but the few things that I would pick out would be, number one, I think you can pull pull the slack out of the bar a little bit more. I think that maybe starting from a bottom up setup, you're kind of in position and then pulling your back really hard and then just deadlifting. I think that we could probably even out and make that setup a little bit more productive. I think that if you got your trunk set before lowering your hips and then pulled your hips into position and then started your deadlift, I think that would work a little bit better. The other thing is it looks like you're really trying to overextend your back. I notice as you initiate your deadlift, you're looking up, you're really arching into the bar, and I think that in this case, you might be trying to produce too much back extension for the deadlift. I think that if you can stay back on your heels a little bit more, because it looks like on a number of reps you're getting pulled forward, keep those ribs tucked down and those lats on, try not to overextend the back, and even out sort of how you're pulling into the bar. I think that'll go a long ways for you, and hopefully that helps Yusuf as well. I wish you a speedy recovery, and hopefully we see some squats on Form Check Friday before too long, man. Our next video submission comes from Matthias. Now Matthias is doing some deadlifts here. He says he struggles to add weight to the bar. He says that if his technique breaks down, it usually breaks down via a whole bunch of rounding, and then he misses it around his knees. Now it looks to me like the root cause for all of this is the fact that as soon as you start pulling, you're losing position in your lumbar spine. Now, if we could get that flattened out, I think that's gonna produce a lot more consistent and efficient position, and just allow you to create better training over time. But I think the best way to do that is going to be to start your hips a tiny bit higher. So it looks like right now your back angle is really good, but as soon as you start pulling, your butt kind of pulls underneath you. And I think if you can keep your upper back, your thoracic and sort of mid back at around the same spot, and just push that butt back and up a little bit before you start, and then start from there, I think that'll go a long ways towards creating a better and more consistent back position. For the most part, it looks like your upper and mid back are staying in a very good position, but it looks like as soon as you start pulling, even from that first rep, we start to see that low back go. Excuse me. Another thing I would try to work on is as you lock out, specifically on the first rep or two, you tend to overdo the extension at the top. So you're pushing your hips really far forward, you're leaning really far back, and what's happening is your knees are getting unlocked as you finish the rep. That's definitely something you want to watch out for if you're looking at competing anytime in the future. Is, you know, obviously one of the things that gets called for a lot of people is going to be soft knees, and that is a failure to lock out. That's going to mean your lift is disqualified. So if you can get yourself to the point where you can start to stand just simply straight upright at the top of your lockouts, that's going to go a lot further for you than trying to overdo and oversell that lockout, because then that results in us unlocking the knees. So hips a little higher, get that low back extended, and keep the knees locked and quads squeezed at the top of your lockouts. Our next lift is coming from Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Shout out to Malaysia. This is not the first submission we've gotten from there, and that's really cool. So hello to everybody watching if you're in Malaysia. Now, Justin's deadlifts actually look like he's setting up a very, very good position, but unfortunately, as Justin initiates his deadlift, he's losing a lot of the critical elements of that position that he's creating initially. So what I think you can do, Justin, is number one, be a little bit more patient off the floor. This might be a little bit heavy in terms of the load that's on the bar, but I'm sure if you can watch this, you can pick out what the positioning looks like before you start, and then what happens when you initiate the lift. The hips start to rise up behind you, we start to see spinal flexion, and then the bar leaves the floor. Whereas if we could become a little bit more patient off the floor, or select a little bit more of an appropriate load, that would allow you to maintain that fantastic position that you're putting yourself in and save you from getting into issues with lockout, because generally that's what's going to happen when the weight gets heavy enough and when we start to see that spinal flexion and those hips coming up behind you in the sumo deadlift. So if we can get to the point where we're a little bit more patient off the floor and are better able to maintain position, I think that's going to go a long ways for you, and hopefully that helps. Justin, give it a shot. And our last video today for the comments section to offer advice on is going to be Tyler Shatney. Tyler's doing some squats here, and let us know what you guys think. We're going to let this play as I kind of give you the outro. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you for all your submissions. It's really cool to see people from all over the world submitting their videos. If you come from somewhere far away from Canada, feel free to, put a little bit of a shout out to where you're from in there, and maybe I'll read that and give you a shout out on the channel. I don't know. Anyways, go ahead and give Tyler some advice on his squats here. Hit that like button if you liked it. Subscribe for more videos like this, and we will see you guys in the next video.